Hi, Jason Kurylo from Pucked in the Head here with Jim Hughson from Hockey Night in Canada. Hello, sir.
Nice to be here, Jason.
Thank you very much for joining us and wearing
You're
this
welcome.
amazing jersey.
Yeah, well, it's better than my food-stained shirt that's underneath.
Yeah, I should have thought of that myself. So you came down to play a little table hockey with us today.
Yes.
And you have a long history playing the game.
Well, I'm not sure if I have a long history. I do have a history like everybody else in Canada. I probably had one of those games. I think they were Kurylo games. I'm not sure where we got it. But from the time I remember being a little wee guy till the time I left my parents' home, there was always a table hockey game in the house. And it was the metal guys, and it was winner take all. It was, my friends and I played a lot. My dad and I played a lot. It was a staple of our home because we were all hockey fans, and it was the only hockey game that was out there. That was the only board hockey game you could play, and it was pretty cool. And we had several versions of it because they kept getting ruined. I mean, just because we didn't nail them down or anything, they would just break.
Well, and you got boys playing any game. It's going to
Absolutely.
break.
You had to be hard on them because you had to be hard on those players. And we were harder than John Tortorella on all those players.
And if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? Even when it comes to table hockey in the basement.
Well, I'm not sure how much you can cheat, but we would push those players, and I suppose you're right.
Now, it was always Leafs and Habs.
Yeah, I don't know why that was, but I guess it was always Leafs and Habs on the television on Saturday night as well.
Right.
So it was only Leafs and Habs on the hockey game.
Now, when you grew up, which voices were you listening to broadcasting games, radio and on television?
Well, in the early days, Danny Gallivan was a big favorite of mine. Jim Robson did the Canuck games, and on our radio station in Fort St. John, where I grew up in northern British Columbia, Jim was always there on the radio games because they carried them. And in my later life, when I was in high school, I was actually an operator in the radio station. I had a job there, and I would sit and listen to the hockey games and plug in the local commercials to the hockey games. So I got a chance to listen to Jim a lot. But Danny Gallivan was always a favorite. We always had the Montreal games. Bill Hewitt, and then later Bob Cole came in. But those were the guys that were like in everybody else's households every Saturday night. And TV tables. You remember TV tables? Nobody has TV tables anymore.
Oh, like we had TV, like the schedules.
No. You know what a TV table is?
Oh, TV trays, the trays.
Well, it's a TV table.
We call it
I remember
trays.
buying I remember it was a wonderful Christmas gift for my mother one year. We actually bought her TV tables. There's these really cheap little aluminum legs and this table that would go together so you could eat in front of your chair in front of the television.
Right.
TV tables, and I've never seen them since. You probably at a garage sale somewhere for somebody who's a little older, you would find them. But the only reason that you would have TV tables is because of Hockey Night in Canada.
Right.
Because Saturday night you had to eat in the living room, and we got to have some form of something that my mother called chop suey, but it had nothing to do with Chinese food. But that's what we had on Saturday night when there was a hockey game on a TV table, and it was right uptown when you were a little kid and got to sit and eat in the living room.
Right. And of course on the West Coast, that Leafs game was always at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and then the first period wasn't on. So in my early life, we only saw initially Hockey Night in Canada when they came on the air in 1952. I don't remember that, but they were worried that they were going to drive people away from the live gate, so they would only put the game on at, I believe it was 8 o'clock or was it 9 o'clock? Eastern time. An hour after the actual start of the game. So it would come on somewhere late in the first period or in the first intermission, or maybe at the start of the second period, depending on how long the game had been. And then they didn't worry that that people wouldn't come to the game. They were really worried about that at the time. So for a long period of time, nobody ever saw the first period of a hockey game.
Unless you were in the building.
We were like that too. So I grew up with Don Messer's Jubilee and Juliet. There were the bookends, the events that came on the television at both ends of the hockey game. And in the middle, there was a couple of periods of great hockey, and it was usually Montreal and Toronto.
Right. Now, when did you actually get involved in calling games?
While I was in high school, I was doing these radio plays through the drama club that I was involved in at the local radio station. And I knew the guy. It was a small town. You knew everybody. I knew the guy who ran the radio station. He was a friend of mine and a friend of the family. And he invited me to work at the radio station. And then at one point, after I went to university and found that it didn't pay very well, so I quit and I went back to the radio station that didn't pay very well either. The guy who was the sportscaster, who did broadcast all the local hockey games, moved away. And I was the only guy left in the radio station that knew a puck from a football.
Right.
So I was elected. I became the sports guy, and I started broadcasting hockey games.
Right.
And we would do, anything. They would, at that point, they would sell, if there was a Pee Wee tournament in town, we'd sell that to the local SO station and broadcast all the Pee Wee games.
Right.
But we also broadcast some of the greatest games that I've ever seen of the South Peace Hockey League, the Fort St. John Flyers and a number of other teams in a great outlaw hockey league that was spectacular. And that's where I cut my teeth, broadcasting games as a teenager.
Right. And then, of course, you got the chance to step into Jim Robson's shoes for a little while.
This is like a Letterman, one of those Letterman things where you actually, you ask the question and you put the mic in the other place.
I don't understand what you mean. Am I holding it in front of me?
So you were holding it in front of you and asking me the question? Or holding
he's a
it
pro.
in front of you while you were answering?
He's a pro. This is a pro. This is okay, here we go.
So move the mic back and forth.
Actually, it's pretty good. You don't really need to do that.
No, it's good. Good direction. Oh, sorry. I was just one of those little TV things.
That's okay. That's all right. Here, there you go. I got schooled by Jim Robson. Or Jim Hughson.
That's okay. That's flattering.
So cool.
That's flattering.
We just said Jim Robson, so that's fine.
Yes.
But you got the chance to step into his shoes a little bit and do some Canucks games in the local market before moving to CBC. Is that right?
Yeah, and it was a real honor. When Jim retired, there would have been a very few jobs. I'd spent 15 years in Eastern Canada working hockey, working baseball, doing a number of things, and had a family, was very comfortable there. And there were very few jobs that I would have ever moved for. But when Jim Robson retired, and he actually let me know when he did, because he knew that I'd be interested. And there are very few jobs that I would have moved coast to coast for. But it was a chance to move back to British Columbia and to do a job that I thought was a great job because of the way he'd done it. He had paved the way. He had done it at such a high level that it made it one of the best jobs that you could go after in my position, I thought, because he set a standard that was really high, and I liked that, so I jumped at the opportunity.
Now, he actually has said many times he preferred radio to television. What about yourself? Is there a different type of storytelling going on if you did radio, now you do television primarily?
Yeah, it's very different, Jason. I still really like radio. I still really enjoy it when I get the opportunity to do that, although those are far less frequent than they used to be. But you can really tell the story of the game. It's like baseball on the radio too. You get to really paint the picture. Hockey, you need to understand that everybody can see. And most nights, because of where we're positioned in a rink, you guys at home can see the game better than we can in the rink. Mm-hmm. You got 60-inch plasma TVs with high def, and I've got a tiny little monitor, and I'm 150 feet from the rink. And I can imagine that there's a lot of times when people are saying, yeah, idiot, I can see exactly what happened there, but I don't know because I haven't seen it yet. And I'm trying to look on a tiny little 12-inch monitor that's not even high def and see what it is. So it's a very different world. But on the television, you try and enhance the picture, try and make sure that everybody knows who's on the ice, matchups, different things like that. At least that's what I try to do. Radio, you just get to freelance and paint the picture, and I love that. So in that sense, I really agree with Jim that there's a real freedom of expression and a freedom to paint a picture when you're doing a radio game. But there's not many games anymore that aren't on television. Right. Pretty much everybody can see every game unless you're caught in your car somewhere. It's always one of the beautiful things about Vancouver radio that I've always thought made it more successful than anywhere else in the National Hockey League is the time difference.
Right.
You got thousands and thousands of people that are stuck in their car at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the Canucks are playing in the Eastern Conference, and so it's a radio game.
Right. One thing I really admire about your call, as opposed to a lot of people, is you interject and you add little bits of language that are unique to you, and it doesn't feel like you're trying too hard. When you bring out Smeagol as a verb, is that a conscious decision to do something that is Jim Hughson, or is that part of your normal language? Do you talk like that?
That's just a perfect word. Actually, one of my sisters came up with that one time and used it one time, and I thought that's absolutely perfect for because it's from Lord of the Rings. It's Gollum and Smeagol, and I thought Smeagling away from somebody on the boards is just a perfect description of the way some guys can get away from a check. And I just incorporated it one night, and I use it now, and I love it. I think it's a great expression. So I'm never. I don't sit down and list expressions that I want to get into a broadcast, but if I hear a good one, and usually there's somebody else's, if I hear a good one, I'll incorporate it if it works.
Right. Well, thanks, sis, because that was a good one. That was a great one. Who is your favorite color guy?
Craig Simpson, who I presently work with, is not only a great guy, a good friend, but understands the game so well, and we think alike, we watch the game alike. There's a lot of similarities there, and we have a pretty good time together. So I truly enjoy working with Craig. But I've worked with so many good guys that I would hate to list them because I'd miss somebody. But there are so many good people within the game that have played the game at a higher level than I've ever played that have offered me so much information that I'm just so thankful to all of them, from Gary Green on. There's a whole bunch of guys that have been very helpful through my career that I've enjoyed working with.
All right. Thank you very much.
I still can't get over the fact you haven't moved the microphone.
It's going to sound great.
Okay,
it's gonna
awesome.
Sound great.
Jason, thank you very much, and good luck with the table hockey tournament, because I think it's great that you're going to raise some money for some wonderful charities. It's a fun, very Canadian thing to do, so I would urge everybody to take part and at least drop by on Robson Street, have a look at it, enjoy some of it, and give generously because the causes are great.
All right. Thank you very much. Jim Hughson.